New book, new year. 2025 is going to be a great year. And maybe you're starting out your new book or a new idea that you want to write and turn into a book for 2025. Well, here is how I would write a book starting in 2025. So to start with the book, you first need an idea. And perhaps you already have an idea, but it's kind of vague and brief. So you want to brainstorm and come up with new ideas. Something that I like to do to help create a vibe or come up with new ideas is talk to my best friend. We often talk about our stories and novels and how we can put new ideas and new themes and tropes into them. Another thing to help you come up with ideas is tropes. You can come up with a list out of tropes that are already very popular or tropes that you like or dislike even, and you can try to incorporate that into your book. And I say tropes that you dislike because you can write them the way you think that they need to be written and how you can make them better. So that's a nice fun challenge you can try in 2025 as well. Another thing you can do is find books that you like. And you can get books or things that you like or themes and genres that you like. And you can find that genre that you like to write in or that you like to read, and you can add that to your story as well. So say if you're writing a YA fantasy, you want a young hero, and you can decide whether it needs to be high fantasy, epic fantasy, dark fantasy, not even fantasy even. It could be sci-fi. You could want to write a YA sci-fi or a sci-fi in general. And then once you have some common tropes and some common themes that you've picked out your genre, then you can really start to dig into your characters. And I feel like your characters are really where you unlock the story, because you discover the why. Is this world the way it is? Why is this world so broken, and how is this character broken? And what is their desire and fear? What do they really want in life? And why are they afraid to get it? What is stopping them? And that's really what's going to create your story, is the fear versus desire. And this is really where you start to build your story. So once you have the fear and the desire and what is stopping them, you're basically just going to build off of that. Now after you have that, then you can really start outlining. Even if you're a discovery writer, I know, I was one. I'm still kind of a hybrid, so I get it. But trust me when I say at least have a brief outline. I always had a rough plot line that I would follow when I started writing. It was usually the hero's journey plot structure. That's what I always had. But then I discovered the 27 chapter plot structure, and I really like that. So I've been going off of that and just building Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. I do a brief outline, and then I really dig into it now, since I know how to write scenes, and I have discovered that if I write scene per chapter, or maybe 2 to 3 scenes per chapter, that it just flows, and it helps with my pacing a lot. So maybe look into that, or maybe if you like the Save the Cat method, hit those beats. Those are really important if you're using that method. And it's a great method. I've been kind of using a hybrid for Save the Cat and the 27 chapter plot. So those kind of align pretty well if you want to look into that. And I'll probably do a video on the 27 chapter plotting method, and I'll show you all that. But for now, let's move on. So after you got your plot, then you really just start to write. If you're a discovery writer and you've got your outline, go, fly, discover your story. You don't have to do a ton of groundwork, just know who your characters are, their fear, desire, and disbelief, and a general structure of the goal, or the general plot line, and go. Now if you're a planner, take your time, plan out your novel. It took me a little over a month to finish drafting my second book, Hidden Realms Uprising, and that was doing a rough draft outline and then digging deeper and making the scene-by-scene structure. So it is very doable to plan out an entire novel in 1 month and then just start writing. Have I gotten very far in the writing process? Absolutely not, because I've been editing my first book from it, and I've been getting more ideas to put into the second book because of that. So it's really good. Now I will say, if you're doing structure work and character development all in 1 month, that may be a little bit harder, because I already knew where my characters were at from book 1 to putting the book 2. So that is something to consider. It may take you a little bit longer, or it may take you less. That's up to you, right at your speed. And then, whenever you're done with your first outline, it could be a draft 0 where you plot it out scene by scene. That's what I like to call my scene plot outline, is a draft 0. And then I'll go in and edit that to see if it needs any developmental edits, and just see if I don't necessarily like something, I can fix it then, instead of having just writing it and then going back and doing a bunch of edits. I'm trying to save my time in the editing process later on. Speaking of editing, I've been editing chapter 1, chapter 2, and the prologue to this. All I'm at right now, but I'm doing my first ever entire read-through of my novel, and it's going pretty well. I've got a unique plotting method, so I'm going through chapter by chapter, and I am making notes at the end of it. I'm not writing in the book because I don't want to mess it up. It's nice and pretty right now. So I haven't been doing that, but I have been making notes in a separate journal. So maybe you're editing in 2025. You're editing your novel. That's what I will be doing for the majority of 2025. And when you do, I would suggest making a schedule for editing, because I use ChatGPT. I know that's going to bring up a lot of controversy, but it actually was really useful because it outlined month by month what I should be working on in my editing process. So January and February, I'm reading it through and then making big developmental edits. March and April, time to think about that. March and April, I'm doing big world building, and I don't remember. I'll have to show you guys on there. It broke it down to where I'm like copying editing 1 month, and then I'm doing line editing the other, and then I'm doing a scene by scene. So I'm working on the big stuff, and then I'm working my way down to the little stuff. And would not have thought about it. I would have just done it chapter by chapter editing and not really thought about that big developmental edit, even though I was kind of already doing it, but now I have a timeline for that. So that's been extremely helpful. So with my read through though, saying all that and going back to my book, I have been doing my edits on Notebook. And that kind of looks like this. It's just literally just notes, and it's prologue. And I'll say needs a ton of line edits, or I'll say needs smoother intro. So that's like a scene by scene or transition type of area. And I have that to work on 1 month. So being the perfectionist that I am and knowing these things, I would have normally, if I didn't have the schedule, I would have normally just went straight ahead and worked on that. And that would have been it. But since I have this outline, I don't really have to be worried about that because I know I'm going to get to it. So it's a lot less anxiety and stress and worry, really, because you're going to get to it eventually. And right now you're focusing on the big picture. And I feel like that's really important, especially when you're in the editing process, because it's exhausting. But with this type of method, it's going to be a lot better. So if you're editing, or maybe you finish your first draft and you're going to go back and edit in 2025, I really suggest laying out a schedule or just focusing on your big edits and then work your way down. Don't do everything at once because you'll regret it. You'll get stuck in the weeds. I'm guilty of it. Trust me, I am guilty of it. I think we all are as writers who are perfectionists. So just take your time. It's going to be okay. And just keep a positive mindset in 2025. I know it's hard as writers, especially since I'm starting the editing phase, and the imposter syndrome has never been more real for me. But I'm trying my best, and I'm going to keep going forward. And I think that's really what matters, is that we just keep going forward and we keep doing our best. And we try to make it better every time. Even if it's just 1% better, it's still 1% better. About 1% adds up. So that's my 2 cents for 2025. I hope you guys have a great time. Cannot wait to see what you guys work on. Drop below what you're going to be working on in 2025. Can't wait to hear about it. I hope you have an amazing day. And if you want to watch more content like this, please consider subscribing. So I want to do an entire video series about character development and the plot editing. Also, one more thing before I forget. If you want that calendar that I was talking about earlier in the video, I will drop the link down to my website, and there's a link there attached, and it's all set up for you. So it's a Canva download, but it's great. That's all for today, folks. I hope you have an amazing 2025. Skeeter out.